Me to discuss the game, I have the great pleasure to be joined by the guys from Unbiased Rugby. How are you doing, sirs?
Okay, yourself, Paul.
Well, thanks, Paul.
All good. Now, this game kicked off, and to me, it looked like South Africa's game plan was to pin Wales back, and they did that successfully for the first sort of 5 or so minutes. But didn't get any reward for doing that, did they?
No, not at all. It was similar, very similar to the England game, the first one on the series. Lots of opportunities, but a knock on here, and just complete missed opportunities. It was actually quite frustrating. Very, very similar to that England game.
Yeah, well, because they gave I thought also the referee was giving some very short knock-on advantages compared to what we've seen recently in international rugby. We've seen some knock-on advantages go for quite a lot of time, but early on he was like 2 passes and suddenly knock-on advantages were over. So it was clear that that they were going to have to adapt to him, because he was definitely calling things differently than we've seen in some other places. But once Wales got their offloading game going, that really kind of negated the South African rush defence, didn't it? Because they just couldn't reset and couldn't get, and that gave Wales opportunities.
Exactly. I credit to Wales that they knew exactly what they were doing at that point. It's a little bit frustrating at the moment because I'm quite worked up from the game. So I may have had too many cups of coffee during it, so I'm a little bit worked up. But I just felt that those first 2 tries from Wales, you could see the writing was on the wall from that point. They were well worked tries. They really, the first one was I know the second one was Jantjies coming out of the line again. It's just complete mismatches. And I think the first one, Marks missed the tackle on, I think it was the number 6. I'm not 100% sure. And
that's right. Yeah, Jenkins was 6 dummied and then went through.
Yeah, very, very soft moments. So very, very soft tries. But at the end of the day, it was well worked from Wales. They knew exactly what they were doing. But looking at the game, I think Wales were very, very good in the beginning. They went into a bit of a lull, and then by the end of the game, they were in complete control.
Yeah, no, agreed. I mean, they had those, but I mean, for both those early tries, they had to go through more than 10 phases, which takes some doing. And it's when they got those phases together, they managed to eventually stretch the South African defence. I thought then that South Africa got a bit of the better of the kicking game, the kicking duel, and Anscombe missed touch a couple of times, whereas too many of the kicks were into South Africa's 22. But from a kicking point of view, I thought they had a good tactical kicking game during that first half, or in the run up to half time.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think the last moment of the game where we took where South Africa took that scrum, we should have gone for the posts at that point. I just felt we should have just taken the points, gone into the sheds, regrouped, come back out again. But you're absolutely right. I think Pollard was really on form with the kicking in the first half. Second half, the kicking wasn't too bad either. It was a Dan Bigger who came on for. Yep. Yeah, he's exceptional. The kicking, the kicking game that he had was just absolutely amazing against the back 3 of South Africa.
Yeah, and then I agree with you. I think just before half time, you're 14-3 down. Take the 3 points because you're smack bang in front. Pollard's kicking, he's got range, but he's not the most accurate of kickers at the moment, unfortunately. And that's what he has to go away and practice during the off season. But that was smack bang in front. That was a gimme for it.
Exactly. We were watching the halftime show with Nick Mallett, and all of them said exactly the same thing. Take the 3 points, go into the sheds, regroup. You know, we know what it's all about. You know, scoring just before the half. You know, it's always a psychological advantage.
Yeah, because in that time before that, South Africa, Pollard missed a penalty, Anscombe hit the post as well, so they both negated each other there. But I mean, Papier was playing a decent game, and he had a lovely break down the sideline there that he just couldn't quite finish off.
No, it was very, 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 very unfortunate. Maybe you should have kicked it forward, but at the end of the day, it was a thing of centimeters. If he had just picked up that ball, the game would have changed at that point.
Yeah, so South Africa had a couple of chances there. We come into the second half, and until Dan Biggar comes on, like you say, South Africa just dominated the possession and territory. Wales didn't even see the ball for what felt like 20 minutes.
No, exactly. I felt that the Jesse Creel try eventually that got through on the side was very, very well worked. Complete patience from the Springboks. They went through the phases. They eventually stretched the Wales defence and they scored the try. And that's the way they should have carried on playing. Just have complete patience that eventually the tries would have come. No defence can last forever.
And that's kind of what we were saying about the Welsh two Welsh early tries. They took 10 phases to go through first to do that. De Allende went off soon after half time. I remember watching him against England. He was crashing through, making lots of yards. In this game, I think he had like 2 carries in the first half. They just weren't using him today, were they?
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm trying to think. The only time the wingers got the ball was when they caught it from a catch. So it wasn't coming down the line from the centre pairing. So I'm really, really liking Cheslin Colby. I think he's absolutely phenomenal. His footwork is just incredible.
Absolutely. No, he always makes at least one player miss, if not 3 or 4. And that's when he's not got space. But you talk about, De Allende, for example, you say the ball's not getting down the line. He had 2 passes and 3 carries. It's not like it was bottlenecking at him, like he was carrying it up lots. He just didn't seem to get the ball at all.
No, exactly. It just seemed it would. For me, at one point, it did feel like we had quite a lot of one-off runners. At one point, the guards were being isolated, and the loose trio of Wales they were on that ball so quickly. So and a lot of the South African guys were found literally completely. Wales guys over them, took the ball out, penalty, done. So at the breakdown, I feel Wales had the upper hand at the breakdown today.
Yep, no, absolutely. And I think they also had they out-hustled South Africa, I think, because especially in that sort of the last sort of 20 minutes, every single scrappy 50-50 ball ended up in Welsh hands.
Yep.
And they really did hustle. And I don't know if South Africa tried to go for big guys, and you say for that one out running. Losing, I've gone blank as who the player was. They lost the lock who got injured early on. But they lost
Stamen.
You lost Stamen with like 5 minutes or whatever.
Exactly.
And then also the number 8. I've gone blank from names. Sorry.
Dwayne Vermeulen.
And Dwayne Vermeulen was clearly had a knock fairly early on, and that he wasn't at his best today. Even and then when he came off. So I think injuries perhaps didn't help the South African effort either.
No, not at all. And look, I think because my wife, we were all watching the game and we all said exactly the same thing. You could see he was hurt, and maybe bringing Francois Lowe on at that point because he is an out-and-out fetcher, maybe it could have changed the breakdown a little bit better. So yeah, it's. I think you make your decisions in the game, and sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you got to trust the guy. You've got to. Yeah, you can't go back and second guess all of these things. But these are things. These are things that may have affected things. A good example of that hassling was when Jantjies locks it on. He holds the ball on the floor. Everyone thinks the whistle's being blown, but a Welsh player grabs it and kicks it through.
Yeah, it was. I was screaming, but I was told to maybe relax a little bit. So, but it's one of those. It's a real soft moment. It's they just stand there and you think, oh, good God, guys. Listen to what's happening on the field. Don't make assumptions.
And there is. We talked about this quickly before we came on air. That there is a whole bunch of tweets going out there complaining about the referee. I don't like to complain about referees. I think the players need to decide it themselves. But there was one when that kick went through, the players on the ground picks the ball up, the Welsh player dives on him but slides kind of over without holding him. And you think, sometimes that goes your way, this time it didn't. And I think we just need to accept that. I don't think those were the calls that stopped South Africa here. It's more their knock-ons and their own mistakes that cost them the game today.
I agree with you 100%. You can't, one moment you don't lose a game for one moment, so, and look, he did go straight over the ball. He did lose his feet. So, but you're absolutely right. But look, maybe the ref was more going, I'm going to err on the side of the attacking side. So, and that's generally, if generally that's good reffing.
Yep.
Geez, I don't get a backlash for that.
We get, it happens. And then basically, in that last 20 minutes, Dan Biggar, because of the penalties that South Africa gave away, he was allowed to get them to victory. I've seen a few complaints by Welsh players saying all that Dan Biggar's done is come on and kick high balls. He did, but at that point, Wales had the scoreboard pressure, or the scoreboard advantage, and they just needed to keep South Africa in their half. So I think it was clever play, if perhaps not the most exciting.
Well, look, it's not the most exciting, but that's exactly the gameplay that was for that moment. So if South Africa were in the lead, they would have done exactly the same thing. Kept the pressure on the Welsh side, and I just felt from about the 60th minute when what's the replacement scrum off?
The youngster,
I can't remember his name now, but I just felt that the kicking really went sideways when Yankees and Evan van Zyl.
So, yep.
I just felt like the box kicks were either 10 meters too far or 10 meters too short. It wasn't accurate enough, and it just like they were kicking directly to Dan Biggar, and then he would do the up and under, and then we would be back under pressure. So they controlled the kicking game. We were completely outclassed at kicking today.
But I do think that I think there were quite a lot of people questioning during the Rugby Championship about Papier and when he was going to get given an opportunity. He seemed to be that third, or he was on the bench and not used, or that third choice in the squad, scrum half. But on this November tour, he has come through as being the second choice. Rassie brought him through at a nice pace for a young guy.
I think so. I think, look, he definitely is the next best that we have. And South Africa is a team that our decisions are made based on 9. That's where our main decisions are. Well, with Faf, our main decisions is done at 9. So Ambrose has to fill in that same kind of role, and he has. The last 2 games, the last game he was exceptional, but this game he was still he wasn't bad. It wasn't his fault that we lost that game. So, yes, I think he is the second choice going forward.
Now, I know you got, as you say, you're still trying to come down from the emotion of watching the game.
Yeah.
But so the Springboks tour, the loss to England, but we've got to say by 1 point, and with players missing because they weren't released by European teams. Beating France, beating Scotland. And then this loss to Wales, a successful tour, or do you think they're disappointing?
No, I was doing the maths beforehand, and I think for the last 2 years, or before Rassie, the 2 years before Rassie, South Africa's had a 20% away record, that's abysmal. And I felt if we went on the away tour and we won at least 50% of our games, it was successful. It would have been nice to come with 75%, but 50% is, it's from where we were last year to where we are now. I think 50% is more than adequate. And if we think about it, I think of all the sides that went north, I think South Africa had the 4 hardest games. Well, not the 4 hardest games, but they were all tier 1 nations. So I think it's England, France, Scotland, Wales. You're talking, it's decent competition. So to come away with 50% from that, I think is fairly successful from where we were last year.
Absolutely. It's about the growth, isn't it? And as I say, the England game came down to a single point and a contentious decision. That could have gone either way. This one, clearly, Wales were the better side on the day, but the other, and obviously you won the other two. So that's, it steps forward from where you were, and puts you, I think, in that solid second group, along with probably England and Wales, chasing the top two.
Yeah, I think so. Look, the top two are, I think, on another, they're on a completely another level. And you're absolutely right. The next three, if Wales were playing in South Africa, maybe we would have won that game. You know, it's exactly what you said. On any given day, those three teams could beat each other.
So which Welsh players stood out for you?
One thing I like about Elwyn Jones, if you notice at every single breakdown, his hands on the ball, or his hands on the player, and very, very Richie McCaw-like, you know, just slowing it down by that millisecond. And I thought that's very, very clever to play it right up to the edge and not be penalised was phenomenal. I think he led exceptionally well from the front. But I'm trying to think on the Wales side. I don't think there was
one comment that he made to the referee, which I thought was a nice anecdote from the game. He complained to the ref. He said, "Look, ref, we're getting some in the dark places," and the ref's response was, "Fair enough."
Look, on the Wales side, I don't think there were super standout players. I just think they all played really, really well. Look, who's the tight head, the starting tight head for Wales? He's not the normal tight head.
Thomas Francis, the one who scored the try.
Yeah, I think. Yes, the one that scored the try. I must admit, Nick Mallett was ripping him to shreds, saying he was a fat person and he was going to be completely destroyed. And I think we're all eating humble pie because I think he stood up. You know, to stand up against Kitshoff, you've got to know what you're doing.
And to be fair, he is someone who has historically not been the strongest prop, but obviously he's in because of injuries to Samson Lee. He's lost a bit of weight. So he's getting about the park a bit more. So yeah, this kind of window has been his sort of coming of age as an international, as an international prop, definitely. So I get where Mallett's coming from. Yeah, that is definitely what most people would have thought from that expect from Thomas Francis.
But I think the standout players were the loose trio. I think at the breakdown they didn't hold anything back. I think normally a game is won at the breakdown, and South Africa are generally quite good at the breakdown. They've got the players to handle it, but they just couldn't handle it today. So credit to Wales. You know, at the breakdown they knew exactly what they were doing.
Yeah, I was also impressed by Anscombe taking it to the line during that first half. He kind of lost his way perhaps in the second half where he wasn't getting ball. But I thought I thought he had a good first half at the very least. On the South African side, I mean, we've talked about Colby already. A quieter game for le Roux, because I normally like le Roux's, or what I've been impressed by le Roux during this window has been just his calm collectiveness at the back to control things and just he doesn't get flustered. But a quiet game from him today.
No, I think so too. Fourie le Roux is one of those kind of players. He can be quite polarizing. You can have 3-4 astounding games, and then he has an absolute shocker. But today it wasn't bad. He was very good under the high ball. The other standout players for South Africa, Marx had the 2 turnovers, but I didn't think he had an exceptional game. I'm just trying to think who played really well.
2 guys who got through a shift of work. Pieter-Steph du Toit got through 17 tackles, missing just 1. And Mostert got through 14 tackles, missing 2. They were the 2 top tacklers in the side. So they got through a bunch of work that you might not have seen too much of.
No, exactly. The guys on the 10-14 were saying you always see Mostert as the top of the list, but you never see him during the game. It's the strangest thing. You know, he's everywhere. He's always one of the top tacklers. Pieter-Steph is, but I'd say, bar none, is probably the best South African player at the moment. bar none. But just for the tackles, he's played every single game this season, and I think he's played the entire game. So, Barner, he has to be South African Player of the Year this year, for me personally.
Yeah, and just to back up your thing about the Lucies on the Welsh side, Jenkins got through 15 tackles, Tipuric 14, Moriarty went off with a HIA, replaced by Wainwright, who got through 13 tackles. So they got through a massive amount of work as well, which was the foundation for this for this win.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, we should say a massive congratulations to Wales. This is the first time they have ever got through a November window, winning all 4 games. So that's
congrats.
That's a historic moment for them. And a little question we've got here from the chat. Hello, DM, Don and Gordy. Will we be seeing a big improvement from the Northern Hemisphere at the Rugby World Cup? Or are we just knackered at this time of year? P.S. Was Gordy a big Jeff Wilson fan? Let's start off with that last one. Gordy, were you a big Jeff Wilson fan?
Sorry, I can't hear very well.
Jeff Wilson from the New Zealanders.
Yeah, no, I'm a New Zealand supporter. I have been one for many, many years, despite the fact that we live in just outside Cape Town, South Africa. It won't change my views, and I won't support the Springboks because I think today they played like a lot of sheep on a grazing field. So I criticise them, and it's honest criticism. But I still, despite the fact that the All Blacks have lost, I still support them. You know, you win some, you lose some. And I'll stay with my son lives in New Zealand. He's from Otago. He supports don't know what the local Highlanders, Otago Highlanders. But for the last 15, 20 years, I've supported All Blacks.
Oh, fabulous!
That's my jersey.
And also, I've got my England jersey on today. So
I see you get the England.
So do we think this is a time of year, just November, and the Southern Hemisphere teams are tired, or do we think that this is a resurgence from the Northern Hemisphere and we'll see a good performance from these sides in Japan next year?
I think we've got a resurgent Northern Hemisphere. You can say a lot, but the guys are tired. That's neither here nor there. But I think we do. I think the Northern Hemisphere the gap is so close. It's beyond a joke. So I don't think it's. Yes, there's a little bit of tiredness, but at the end of the day, I think the gap is closed.
Absolutely, I think. I think there are 2 sides at the top, which is your New Zealand and Ireland, and I don't think there's much separating them. But as you said earlier, I think they're clear of the next crowd. But in that next crowd, you've got Wales, England, South Africa, who are all a much of a muchness, and they're kind of possibles rather than probables. And then I think you've got the others that are a bit too inconsistent in your Scotland, Argentina, Australia, who can cause upsets on their day, but I can't see them stringing together a bunch of results.
No, I think those 5 teams, they should make the quarters. Fairly easily next year. I honestly do feel that, but I think it's the biggest game for South Africa now. Now I'm going to talk about the World Cup for 30 seconds, but the biggest game I honestly feel is going to be the first game for South Africa, because whoever loses that game has to face Ireland. So I think from my point of view, that's the most important game next year.
That's well, there we go. That's the that tells you where the next. All the next 4, or if South Africa sneak in an extra one, the next 5 Test matches will all be lining up for that opening game. Because apart from that, I've got you online, so I'll talk Rugby World Cup with you. Apart from, obviously, you've got South Africa and New Zealand in that group, but Italy, Namibia, and Canada, that's probably the easiest group, or the weakest bottom 3 teams anyway, across all the groups.
Yeah. I'd say so. Look, last year, or maybe the year before, I would have thought, geez, maybe Italy would have gone through ahead of us. But Now I'd say we did lose against Italy, not last year, the year before. So it's happened. So, but yeah, you're absolutely right. I think it's pretty much a given. South Africa, New Zealand will go through on that pool. It just depends who comes out on top. Because whoever comes out on top will have an easier run.
Absolutely, because unless Ireland comes second, of course, in their group, which is unlikely, but is also possible. I think Ireland have got Scotland and Japan, where Japan can, again, unlikely to get out of their group, but could cause somebody a bit of a bloody nose at some point.
I've really enjoyed the way that the Japanese have been playing. I think last week against England, I thought they played really well.
Stunning first half, and then England just grounded out in the turn it round in the second half to win that. And talking about halves and stuff, I guess actually this follows on from this South Africa game follows on from a bit of a theme that South Africa have been having, which is going behind and then having to catch up later. The first 5 minutes it looked like they'd come out the sheds properly, but I think that's probably going to be one of the big work-ons next year is to how do you come out the sheds at the beginning of the game and start firing from the off.
Yeah, it's become. We've been very, very fortunate that we've been able to grind out victories by going so far behind. But I think that last week they were talking. Geez, it just would be nice that we have a game that we convincingly win. It just hasn't happened for so long. You got to sit there for the last. Well, against France, we had to wait into the 82nd minute just to know that we had actually won. So it would be nice that we just, maybe just once, just know that by the 60th minute we know we've won, because it just hasn't happened for so long. So yeah, it is a bit of a problem because it's very, very soft moments, and a lot of our moments that we lose, we'll score a try and then we'll switch off for the next 3-4 minutes and the opposition score again. So it is a bit of it's a concern. I'm sure Russie's got some plan to work on it, but it is a concern.
So the Nasi Coertzi says in the live chat, Rassie needs to sort out team selections. Dianti is terrible under the high ball, and Delendi is not a good ball distributor. Now, I know Rassie's been under some fire for his selections and not using this game to build depth in his squad. To me, I think he's had only a short amount of time coming in before the Rugby World Cup. He's spent the 4 June internationals and perhaps the start of the Rugby Championship sorting out who his first 15 is and 23.
Yeah.
And I think then he's like, right, this is my combination. I've done my experimentation. I've got to play this combination from now on. I don't have time to build depth. And if I get injuries, I'll just have to deal with it then.
I agree. There's not enough time before the World Cup. Look, there are the centre pairing is a little bit of an issue. I feel there's better players out there that are injured at the moment that could probably are better defenders and attackers and better distributors. A guy that comes to mind is probably Laconia Arm. I think he's I like Jesse Creel, but I still think there's a little bit of exactly right. There's a little bit of a problem in the centre pairing. We've got 2 crashers as opposed to a distributor or a playmaker. So I think that's a little bit of an issue that we have in our centre pairing. And on the wings, Gianti's amazing when he's on fire and he steps and he scores. He's absolutely incredible. But for the last couple of games, he has been coming out of line. He's been coming out of his channel, and he's been found wanting in a defensive position. So it's something that's going to have to be worked on, because I think he brings enough in attack to warrant him being worked on his defence.
No, I agree, and we don't have to go that far back to Wellington, where South Africa's defence was monumental, and that won the game. So, I don't think that. Fine. He's maybe had a couple of bad games towards the end of the season. Doesn't mean he shouldn't be persevered with. I think he definitely is there. As far as the centre combination goes, with 2 crashes, I wonder if his idea is that during the first half, while everyone's still fresh, I want 2 big defensive guys and then in the second half I can bring on Janchis and have Pollard in there and play and switch things up, and then play two distributors when things open up. But before things open up, I want to keep it solid defensively. Maybe that's his thinking.
I think so. Look, normally what's been happening is I think Yankees coming on in the second half is actually I think it's quite a masterstroke, that one. Yankees is much better in a much looser kind of game. When it's tight and it's going backwards or it's raining or something, he's not that kind of 10. But when it's in the second half and it's very, very loose, he's incredible. So you're absolutely right. Moving, not that Pollard he's also goes into contact quite a bit, but you're absolutely right. I think it has worked in the last few games. Today it just didn't gel 100%, but maybe that might have been the speed of defence from the Welsh side. It was just putting too much pressure on.
Yep. Well, I've kept you for half an hour. I've spent probably the best part of 6 months trying to get you on the show. So thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute delight. Let people know where they can find your wonderful content.
We've got a channel also on YouTube called Unbiased Rugby. Don't read much into the name. We are fairly biased at some points, but we try. We're very unbiased about the rugby. We might be biased about the teams, so that's how we try to justify it. But we've got a YouTube channel. We've actually can I just do a shout out for one of our videos that is coming up? We've got an awards coming up in the next, I think, week or two, and we've got a video out with all the questions on, I think it's player, best ref, which is very contentious. But so there's 15 awards, and if you guys just go look at the video, you can just give your vote, and we'll choose the best one from what everybody votes.
So head over to the Unbiased Rugby. I will put a link down there to the Unbiased Rugby channel for those watching the recording. There's a link up there to subscribe to my channel, and there's 2 videos over there that you guys will absolutely adore. So thank you very much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure over this November window. And let's remember just to keep the banter on Twitter and Facebook, to be respectful, please, and let's not be too bagging on the ref.